So we've done our troubleshooting, we've done our diagnosis, we know what the problem is, but now we need to fix that problem, and we need to use exercises that are going to create flexibility or change hand shape or something to get them to a better way of doing things. One of the things that we need to do to create flexibility is we need to be able to move different parts of the hand fluidly and not lock up. Now, if we're locking up because of poor wrist position or poor elbow position, there's really nothing we can do about that until we fix those. So we fix those first, and these next techniques aren't going to be as effective until we get our setup right. So the first thing I want to talk about is thumb flappers. And thumb flappers, again, develop flexibility in the hand so that the moment arm doesn't just come from the finger, but into the middle part of the hand as well, because the middle part of the hand, although we don't always think about it, is part of the moment arm. And if this part of the hand is not flexible and it's not set up correctly, it will change the distance from the middle of the hand to the finger. It changes D, and so you're going to have to use more force to make up for deficiency in the length of the moment arm. So how do we do thumb flappers? Well, first you need to put down your instruments. You can't do thumb flappers with your instruments in your hand. Your hands need to be empty for this. So have them safely put down their instruments and their bows without breaking anything. And then when you explain this, you may want to turn around because, you know, we all get our rights and our lefts confused sometimes. I do all the time. You know, Siri tells me to turn right or whatever, and, you know, I'm in the lake. So we have to turn around so that they're mirroring us instead of doing the opposite. Or if you're smarter than I am, you can do it opposite of what they're doing, which might confuse some of your brighter students. So I don't know. I like to do it forward first, and then I turn around so that they can see me doing it this way. But you just tell them, with your left hand, I want you to grab your right thumb. Now, when they're grabbing their right thumb, they have to grab it in such a way where their pinky blocks off the middle side of the hand, where it's like, what is that? Is that the lifeline? What is this thing called? Mabel, do you know? What is this? That's the lifeline?
Yeah, you should call it lifeline.
Okay, so where it blocks off the, I guess, the lifeline, I don't know, I'm not a palm reader, but my producer says that's the lifeline. So we're going to block off that lifeline. That sounds really weird. We're going to block off the lifeline. This is going to be great for the outtakes. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our hand so that we're blocking off right in line with this lifeline, so that we're moving the whole hand this way, and I call these thumb flappers. So we're going to do thumb flappers like this, and then you turn around so they can see it from this angle, thumb flappers, just getting them to mobilize all of the hand. And that way, you know, they're not doing this, they're not making a fist or whatever, they're not moving, they're isolating the thumb from the rest of the hand, and that's a very important skill to learn. And this is also going to be very important later when we start talking about vibrato development, is to be able to isolate the thumb. So I got this next one from the Suzuki school, and they're great at setting up students to play. They're great at, they'd use a lot of rote technique, and it's wonderful for beginning students and even for advanced students. I do this in my high school orchestra classes in all levels. This exercise is to develop shoulder flexibility and shoulder mobility. And again, because of cell phone posture, everybody's very tight, and moving the shoulder is very difficult, and a lot of students are really tense. So they might not be able to do this perfectly the very first time. It might take a while of doing this every single day, and if you're in an area where students are on their cell phones more than they're not, you know, that's your demographic, you're going to have to do this every day, you know, to mobilize the rotator cuff, to mobilize the upper scapula and the rhomboids, and, you know, and even the front shoulder capsule is going to tighten up to compensate for the atrophy of the upper back muscles. I've seen these bad techniques proceed all the way into university levels too, and I see students, you know, like cellists getting 3 chairs and stacking them on top of all this stuff when it's just a mobility issue. And I've seen brachialis tears from string players that just have never loosened up that shoulder appropriately, and that's just sad. And just do some elbow swings. So how do we do elbow swings? We grab our lowest string with the 4th finger, and we're going to strum all 4 strings just perpendicular to the strings, perpendicular to the fingerboard in a straight line, and we're just going to rock the elbow in and out and in and out for violins and violas. For cellos and basses, we're going to rotate the shoulder forward and back, forward and back. For cellos and bass players, particularly with bass players, we're going to see a slight drop in the elbow too as we rotate. Another technique that I learned about from the director of music education at the Jacob School are finger tappers. So what we want to do is get the students to shift all the way down until the heel of their palm makes contact with the upper bout. And then we want to tap with each one of our fingers up and down while keeping that palm pressure consistent. And again, what this does is it develops isolation from the thumb to the rest of the hand. This is going to be able to give us control of the length of the moment arm so that we can do what we need to do where we need to do it. If you have students that have a high degree of thumb squeeze, let's say you see them squeezing really hard and you see those knuckles turning white, or if you see low string players and their thumbs keep peeking over the edge of the neck and you tell them, hey, I'm going to get my hedge clippers and I'm going to cut that thumb right off if I see it again, and they keep doing it, well, maybe this exercise might help. So if the thumb's the problem, let's take away the thumb. Let's pull the thumb away and see if we can finger without the thumb at all. How does that work? Does the instrument fall down? Are we dropping the instrument? Is that fear going away? Orchestra can be stressful, and sometimes it's intentionally stressful because we have to develop that stress in order to grow. A lot of students feel that stress by just squeezing the living daylights out of the neck, and we have to eliminate that habit. So we just get them to play with no thumb, and then their fear will start to go away. They'll say, nothing's falling down, nothing's really happening, and they'll have to figure out how to deploy force without the thumb, counter-resisting the moment arm. This next one works really well for developing vibrato, but it also works well for eliminating squeeze. You can have them play with four-finger patterns or whatever, just up and down, just slurs, or it doesn't really matter what it is, and have them take the thumb away and replace the thumb, and take the thumb away and replace the thumb. And that's just another exercise that might help them eliminate squeeze, and so they have less white knuckles going on in the classroom, less tension in the left hand. Early last semester, I was teaching a passage of the New World Symphony in the fourth movement for first violins. And this passage had a lot of very quickly moving 16th notes. And the problem is that many of my first violinists did not have the technique to be able to play that passage. And so you can slow it down, you can speed it up incrementally and use all your tricks, but they don't have the technique to be able to play it at the required speed. So in my diagnosis and troubleshooting, I was able to realize that my students were not having a very good left hand shape. Their fingers were collapsing, and they would never be able to play it at speed because they weren't able to retain their left hand shape while playing quicker. So to solve this issue, I deployed a technique that I like to use with more advanced students, but you can also use it with younger students if you want. And this technique also works brilliantly if you're trying to teach your students to articulate through a slur, meaning that, yes, the notes are slurred, but the beginning of each note needs to be clearly defined with the left hand. And this is simply to play the finger pattern or play the fingering that you were supposed to play, but tap the string and try to let the string sing each pitch without the bow. And if you're pressing hard enough, you can hear the pitches, and you can start slowly that way and incrementally speed up. And that way you're working on your left-hand technique without the bow. And you can't, if you try to do it plucking or pizzicato, you can't possibly pluck that fast. Maybe two fingers, like bolero or something, but don't worry about that. And that way you can take something out of the equation, which is the bow, and focus on the left hand so that you can speed up the learning process by taking something that you can add back in later. With all of these exercises, we simplify down to something, and then we will expand on it later. So again, we simplify by isolating the thumb, we simplify by tapping the fingers, we simplify by removing the thumb, we simplify by tapping the strings, and then of course the bow is going to come back in later, but you can't expect your students to learn everything at once. Sometimes you have to deconstruct and then put it back together. Do you have any great exercises that you've developed for your classroom? Drop them in the comment section below, and maybe we can go into our teaching orchestra lab and demonstrate those techniques.